Okay, everyone, welcome back to, this is part 2 of episode 44 of Ask the King. So if you have not watched part 1, definitely check that out on YouTube, okay? Alright, so we're going to continue on with the ton of questions that we actually have, so let's keep going here. Alright, this question is a good one. Let's see here. Alright, so I'll just start. Hey Phil, when looking back at your Dan Madness videos, I still crack up to this day. So much has changed in the meantime, since you did those. Do you ever stand back and watch all that you have accomplished? So much growth in presenting, video recording and editing, schedules, critique, managing the website, basically being a producer and director of everything. Really love your content and how you stand in life. Regardless of what anyone says, you're a good, hardworking, and honest people. And I have to scroll, hold on. And those are increasingly hard to find nowadays. And that's from Atlas Telemon. Now, first of all, I want to say thank you. That was an amazing compliment. And it's good to know that there's people who to this day are still watching the old content from way back when, pre-2010, when really I became popular on YouTube, and that's how I got my start. So thanks a lot for that compliment. Now the question really here is, do I ever have a chance to kind of go back and reminisce and reflect? And quite honestly, I'll be honest with everyone, no. I really have not taken the chance to go back and say, oh, look at all these series I used to do. Oh, remember when I did this? Oh, remember when I did that? Usually at the end of the year, I do my year-end series, and that's kind of it. So it would be interesting to see if I did at one point decide to go back over the years and say, wow, here's the top 10 things favorite things that I did like this, or the top 10 most creative series that I feel that I made that weren't just playing a game and stuff like that. But I don't, and I would be very interested if someone were to actually go and take a look at the amount of videos that I've put up on YouTube and actually cumulatively make a number of how many hours of footage between my vlogs, between my playthroughs, between my travel vlogs and stuff like that. How much footage have I actually uploaded to the internet? And is there anyone on Earth, on planet Earth, who's uploaded and created as much content as I have? And I'm not saying, oh, a company with a bunch of people. I'm saying one individual like me. Because at this point, I believe I have over 30,000 videos on the internet. That's a ton of fucking work. And I'd be very, very curious to actually see how much it is if someone could figure that out. But I have absolutely no idea how to do that. Okay, next question. Hey, Phil, it seems like we haven't gotten I can't read this question. Phil, it seems like we haven't gotten anything really new under the sun in gaming in a long time. Every once in a while there's something like Guitar Hero or the Nintendo Wii that tries to do something new, but they don't last. What we call innovation these days is something like Titanfall, which is basically just, like you said in your review, just takes a mashup of other things that are already established and puts them together into one game. So do you think gaming will continue to rely on standard genres for appeal, or do you think that any new paradigms potentially will emerge? So, for example, gaming becoming more serious on the iPhone and mobile gaming and stuff like that. And that is from Blegs. Interesting, Blegs. That is a very interesting thing that you brought up, because absolutely, I would say at the very end of the PlayStation 2's life, the very beginning of that next generation of consoles, which was the Xbox 360, the PS3, and the Nintendo Wii, that we had this big rush of innovation. We had the motion controls of the Nintendo Wii, which were a gimmick, but they were different, let's be honest. You had Guitar Hero, right? And then all of a sudden Band Hero, and all the different things, Rock Band and stuff like that. And that actually was something completely different that had not existed before that era. But look what happened. The market got so oversaturated, and it was a gimmick, and people got tired of the gimmick, and it completely failed and faded away. And now you can't, it's so funny, you can't even trade in those peripherals. Like the PS Move, remember the PS Move? You can't even trade it into GameStop. It's worth 0. They literally say, this has 0 monetary value, just throw it out. So, there you have it. But you're at the same time, Blegs makes an interesting point. Today, oh, innovation, it's a great new thing. It's true. That's what we heard when Titanfall was coming out in April. It's great, it's innovative, it's new, it's different. And then when you actually play it, anyone who's been around the block, who was around in the 1990s and played games like Quake and Unreal, who was around playing Mech Warrior, you realize it's the same games just mashed together. So is that innovation just because you never had chocolate and peanut butter together, when you finally put them together, is that innovating? I don't know, and obviously you be the judge, right? And I think that, unfortunately, I was right about Titanfall because, let's be honest, it's 3 months later. Who talks about Titanfall? No one but, you know, basically huge fanboys who bought all the hype back then. Everyone else has already moved on. So, what will innovation be? We've got some new things on the horizon coming, right? We've got the Oculus Rift and whatever the hell Sony's calling their VR headsets. Will those turn out to be actual things that enhance gaming and become a staple? Or will they be overhyped and die out? I actually remember a few years back, I think it was around 2010, 2011, everyone at that point, Phil, what about 3D TVs? They're the new age. Every TV has 3D. Everyone's paying extra for 3D. Games are saying they're going to be 3D. 3D, 3D, 3D. And at that point, I said, I really don't think 3D is going to be that. It's a gimmick. It's existed before. It exists now in a different form. I don't see that it's going to be. And take a look. Is it commonplace? No. In fact, most games don't render in 3D anymore. People just stopped developing games for 3D because no one cared. So I think, again, these things are kind of gimmicks, not innovations. All right? I don't know what the next innovation will be. I honestly don't. What I am seeing, if you want to talk about emerging markets, he's absolutely dead on, Bleggs. He says the mobile market, iPhone. He's 100% dead on. If you look at mobile gaming sales in the past few years, it is a huge just incline of sales, exponential growth in that field. And everyone's, you know, let's face it, everyone has one of these now, whether it's an iPhone, whether it's the HTC, Samsung, fucking giant smart glass piece of shit, whatever it's called. Everyone has one now. This is the standard for phones, and everyone's downloading these games for $1 or $2 and playing them. Some people, unfortunately, getting addicted to them and spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on them. It's actually been found that there's a new pattern of people becoming addicted to their cell phone games and spending tons of money in them, and it's becoming an epidemic in some places, which is kind of fucked up. But, is this the new market for gaming? Honestly, it's an honest question. Is the era and the time of the dedicated console and the dedicated mobile device done, and this is the future because everyone already has a phone? It could be. In 3 years' time, will we all be playing the next big AAA release on our phone? It could be. I mean, I'm serious. At this point, I don't know. Gaming is such an emerging market at this point, and it's changing a lot, that I don't know what we're going to see. I guess we'll have to see, right? All right, next question. Phil, I remember that you mentioned that you used to watch one of the Star Trek shows, and I was actually curious. Which one is it did you watch? Did you watch more than one? I gotta perfect this for next time because it's taking forever to scroll the questions. Let me go full screen here. Oh yeah, if you watched more than one, which one did you like the most and why? And that's from I Cured It With My Brain, who I want to give a shout out because he very frequently creates fan art for the streams. Good question. When I was growing up, keep in mind, the 1980s into the early 1990s, Star Trek was having a huge revival. And what I mean by that is there had been an original series that starring, oh my god, you know, James T. Kirk, why can't I remember his name? William Shatner, starring William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy as Kirk and Spock. It spawned, you know, at that time it was huge, but then that series got canceled. It became a series of movies. And then all of a sudden there was like nothing going on, and they decided that they were going to revive Star Trek and create a new show called Star Trek The Next Generation that took place thousands of years in the future. Well, I think it was actually only hundreds. Actually, now I'm thinking it's not even hundreds. It's only like about 100 years in the future from the original Star Trek. I don't quote me because I haven't been up on this stuff in a long time. It was supposed to be set in the future, so it was more futuristic, even better futuristic technology than more of the campy stuff that you saw in the original Star Trek show. And that aired new on TV during the time period when I was growing up. And I used to actually watch that show with my mom and dad when new episodes aired. And then later on, you had Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which was unique because for the first time, it wasn't about a starship. It was about people living on this international space station that was kind of like almost a rest stop or a hub in the middle of space near a wormhole. And I really liked both of those shows and watched most of the episodes. I probably didn't see every episode of Deep Space Nine because near the end, I didn't really watch it that much anymore. But those were my two favorites. There were other ones after that, like Voyager and Enterprise, and I just couldn't get into those. I thought Voyager was the most boring fucking show they ever made. I fell asleep watching it. There's boring characters. Not the captain herself really wasn't a very inspiring character. She was very stoic. That was supposed to be the thing. Like, she was a very to the book, to the code stoic character, and I really didn't get into her. And I didn't really like it. And Enterprise, you know, was probably one of the biggest failures of the Star Trek franchise ever. Only aired a few seasons, and it had low ratings and just went off the air. I don't know what they were thinking with that, because it was a prequel, and that's, I always say prequels do not do well, but people don't listen to me, and they continue to make fucking prequels. So, whatever. But yeah, those were the two that I liked. Star Trek: The Next Generation and Star Trek: Deep Space Nine were the two that I watched. Okay. Next question. Hey Phil, so I know that you've just moved to Seattle, but my question is, how does it feel to adjust to a new time zone after living under the Eastern time zone for so many years? Are you now used to this time zone? And are you used to everything? Does it feel early for you when you're doing stuff? At Eastern time, you did everything at the same time each day. That question is from Kiddo. First of all, here's the thing, is that, like I said, unlike what people thought was going to happen, people thought that I was going to move out here and I was going to completely change all of my stream times and everything was going to be different. And as you've seen, it's not. My stream times, for the most part, are around the same time, and I'm trying to get more consistent with that. Now, obviously, there's been all kinds of things going on with my technology, my equipment not working properly, getting used to new equipment, and so I am starting late a lot, and I apologize for that. I promise you I'm working to try to be more consistent with that, to try to show up on time, and also to make that stuff work so that when I stream, I'm streaming rather than, oh, okay, I'm streaming, but it doesn't work for the first hour, and I have to fuck with all the equipment, right? But, that being said, there is some adjustment. There absolutely is some adjustment, because I used to be, you know, on the East Coast, I was waking up at, say, you know, 1 and 2 in the afternoon a lot of times, so that I could be awake in time for me to do my streaming and then be up all night supervising the videos. Here, I'm doing everything 3 hours earlier, although technically it's the same time for me. So here I'm waking up at 10:30 in the morning instead of 1:30 in the afternoon, and it's a little different, I'll be honest. I feel, for whatever reason, I'm feeling very groggy in the morning, and I don't know what it is, but I'm hoping to get out of that eventually, and then, you know, be able to jump out of bed, yes, ready for the day and all that. I'm getting there. I have to get ready for or used to this kind of schedule where even the light outside and the temperatures and everything's way different. So it is a time of transition. But for the most part, my streams are remaining the same. The only thing that I will say is this. I have noticed that my second stream, really I don't have enough time in that hour-and-a-half break to eat dinner and get what I need to get done and come back to the stream. So I think what I'm going to start doing is announcing that second stream is going to be starting at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time, which is my local time now, and that way it'll give me 2 full hours to try to get everything done, and not everyone's sitting here for half hour, where's Phil, where's Phil, where's Phil. And what I may do is extend the length of that stream to go a little bit longer on a regular basis so that we have more gameplay on that stream, but we'll see how that goes, okay? Alright, next question. Hey Phil, do you consider esports as a legitimate sport? There's a lot of debate on this topic, and many people want it to become a recognized sport. However, I believe that it isn't a sport because there's no real physical exertion. I personally believe it is not a sport, and that's from Sultan of Swing. It's interesting because what is the definition of sport? Is it just any competition? Or is it a competition involving physical activity? Is it that there's high stakes and that there's a championship and an official set of rules that this competition is judged by? How do you judge if something is sport or if it's just derision? You know what I mean? It's something that you do for fun versus something that you do as a more professional basis. And I think that's really where the debate is coming in when it comes to what they're calling esports. Because when you really look at it, look at the games that are huge right now in esports. Games like the MOBAs like League of Legends and Dota 2, Call of Duty, Halo and other first-person shooter games, Street Fighter and fighting games. These games, okay, esports have definitive sets of rules, right? It's pretty much just as professionally held and judged and ran as any other real, what's considered sport outside of esports. The only difference is, like he said, there's no real physical activity. Me just sitting here with a controller and going like this, it's all mental and hand-eye coordination. It's not me working up a sweat and doing physical stuff. So they call it esports because they're basically saying it's electronic. It's an electronic sport. It's not a physical activity. But should it even be called a sport? And I think that's where really the issue of debate is. And me, personally, I think that anything that you do that has any kind of a competitive nature where there could be someone deemed a winner for either doing something the best or beating someone in a competitive atmosphere, that it could be considered a sport. Let's face it, remember Donkey Kong and that movie King of Kong, where Billy Mitchell and that other guy were competing to try to have the highest score on Donkey Kong? Could you call that a sport? Not really, but could you call it a competition? Yeah, they were in competition to try to have the highest score in a game that really, you know, people don't really go to try to get that high of an achievement in it. So maybe esports is the way to go to call it, because it defines it from regular sports. It's not physical, it's electronic. It doesn't have that physical attribute to it. At the same time, I'm sure the people who are real physical athletes, how dare they call themselves athletes? You know, my whole life I dedicated to physically perfecting my body and all my skills for sports. Now you're going to call yourself a e-athlete, and you kind of tarnish the name of an athlete by calling yourself an e-athlete. There's always going to be this debate, because this is what happens when you have an emerging market. It's an emerging thing in culture. It's new, it's different, it doesn't have a set spot yet to be settled into. But let's face it, 10, 15 years ago, people who played video games were called nerds and geeks, and people made fun of them. Now all of a sudden, 15 years later, it's big business, it's the most profitable thing on planet Earth, and everyone's into it, and it's cool to do it. So you see how opinions can change very quickly. Give it another 10, 15 years, if esports blow up and it's become a big leagues that are worldwide, and you have thousands upon thousands of people participating in it, you may actually see it become more accepted, and you'll stop having this kind of negative association with esports and e-athletes. Okay, next question. This one's from Jamal, and he says, "Hey Phil, what nationality do you think is the most annoying to play with when you're playing games with online multiplayer?" You know, I put a lot of thought into my answer for this question, and I just got to go with the Martians. I mean, every time that you try to play a first-person shooter with a Martian, they just go meep, 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 take me to your leader, nanu, nanu, and you just can't concentrate. They're just constantly with this bullshit into the mic, and you just want to strangle them. But honestly, that's a really dumb question. I think that's kind of a messed up question to be asking. I don't think there's anyone with a nationality that's annoying. I think it's more the personality of the person on the other line. I could care less if you talk with an accent of any kind. But if you're going to sit there on the mic and say stupid shit, racist shit, bigoted shit, and you're just going to be a nasty asshole in general, yeah, I'm going to have a problem with you. So there's my answer to that question. Okay. Now this is a good one. This is a hot topic right now in the gaming world, so I'm glad someone asked it. So this one, let's go for it. Hey Phil, I hope that everything's going well with the move, but my question is, what are your thoughts regarding Gamestop supposedly wanting to involve themselves in game development? Now I know you're like, what? Some of you might hear this for the first time. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Let's explain. If you haven't heard, various employees of GameStop say that the company wants to pay game developers a certain amount of cash to tell them to develop exclusive missions in the game as an incentive for consumers to come in and pre-order at GameStop specifically. The main difference from today's policy is that the exclusive missions that you could get as, like, say, a pre-order bonus for GameStop won't become available at any point to the public, period. So they will remain exclusive indefinitely to where you buy the game from. If this becomes a success, this can be dangerous because other companies like Amazon and Target, Walmart, etc. will start to do the same thing, resulting in numerous retailers all offering various things for free and the consumer having a hard time deciding which version that you should get. This could potentially, in the long run, discourage consumers from pre-ordering games. The GameStop CEO himself stated they won't be involved in the game development process, confirming that it will just leave it to the developers and publishers early on to decide what kind of an offer they want to offer the consumers, depending on where they buy the games. The ultimate goal is to encourage consumers to come in and purchase more games on release, which actually could help out game developers. But again, if this is a success, more retailers will focus on doing the same thing, which could end up causing frustration for gamers in the long run. What do you think about this? And that question was from Industrial Gamer. First of all, that one was a mouthful, so let me take a sip of water. Okay. Listen, first of all, the whole deal with pre-order bonuses I think is pretty stupid and bogus. Because, let's face it, if you spend your hard-earned money, you're going to lay down $60 of your money to buy a retail video game. You should get, and you should be entitled to the same experience as every other person who spent the same $60. Not because you pre-ordered the game 2 months in advance, because you went with this this retailer over another because you got an exclusive giveaway fucking code from some inclusive thing that happened on the internet 4 months ago, because you bought a game from the same game publisher that has nothing to fucking do with the game that you're getting, and you got a code. None of that should exist. That is all marketing bullshit. It really is. And when you really realistically look at the pre-order bonuses that you get with a lot of these games, they're absolutely laughable. A new skin for your character. Oh, free challenge maps. Then you go to play the challenge map, you realize it's completely superfluous, doesn't need to be in the game, and isn't very fun. So really, these pre-order bonuses you get for getting at different retailers, a lot of times don't pan out. Other times they do. For example, I just recently played EA Sports UFC, and for pre-ordering, you get Bruce Lee. Now, Bruce Lee, that's awesome. He's a very well-known martial artist. Some people regard him as the best martial artist of all time. If he's still alive, maybe he would have gotten to MMA and stuff like that, and to see him in a virtual setting like UFC is kind of neat. So in that regard, that's a cool thing. But again, why punish the person who didn't pre-order the game? Now, up to now, most of the time, even if you don't pre-order that content, you could still buy it. So yeah, right now, if you didn't pre-order UFC, you could still buy it and then buy Bruce Lee online for a couple bucks and he'll be in the game. So people really haven't complained too much about the process to begin with up to this point. But now what's actually happening is the GameStop management is going out to game developers and saying, if we pay you money, will you create us exclusive levels and exclusive content that only will be available for those who buy the game at GameStop? And again, this will cause... This will be great possibly for game developers because they're getting money from GameStop. This will be great for GameStop because more people will go to GameStop to buy games. And this is horrible for the consumer. It's a completely anti-consumer practice because the consumer now has to go get a certain version from a certain retailer in order to get the full content of the game. Is it fair that because you don't have a local GameStop or a local Walmart, or because maybe your mail delivery is shit and you don't want to order something off of Amazon, that you don't get the full game? No, that's bullshit. And another thing, let's say that they start doing this. So, okay, when Destiny comes out, for people who order at Walmart, they're going to get 2 hours of exclusive content. When you order at GameStop, you're going to get 4 new multiplayer maps. When you order at Amazon, you get 5 new guns and characters. So how do you decide which one you get? Because now they're all different and you have no fucking clue what's best, right? So it's just going to create a huge and confusing mess for the consumer and the line-level gamer. When you see business practices like this, these are completely anti-consumer. It's only for these companies to make more fucking money. Now, let's face it. Why is GameStop doing this? It's very simple. Because GameStop had a model, a business model, based off of selling used games. Reselling games that were already purchased with no additional income to the people who actually created those games. Now that the used game market is dying, and I'll say that, the used game market is dying for multiple reasons. Number one, because, let's face it, a lot of games now you can get digitally and instantly over the internet. If I could just sit here and get the game immediately on release day, why would I bother to go pre-order and drive to a fucking store that's miles away to go pick up the same exact game, right? So really, the used game market is taking a huge hit. And if I'll be honest, if the Xbox One was released, GameStop would have taken an even worse hit because it wouldn't even work with used games. So GameStop is now hurting, and they need to find a new revenue model. So instead of trying to find something creative or innovative or fun, they try to do something to fuck over their own customer base because they need this. And it's sad. It really is sad that the management of GameStop is so fucking uncreative, so they didn't have any business sense whatsoever in their heads to prepare for this inevitability, and now they're trying to find some way to screw people over in order to make more money and keep their company afloat. It's bullshit. Okay. Next question. Okay. So this one is about your DSP Tries It series. When you were in Connecticut, many times you tried fast food, and I remember that Burger King was always a recurring source of your episodes for DSP Tries It, sometimes begrudgingly. If I remember correctly, Burger King seemed like an unfortunate staple because a lot of the items weren't exactly to your liking, but now that you're in a new state, Washington State, you've taken some time to check out the stuff there too. Do you think that you'll have a good feel for what your new favorite DSP Tries It food site might be? Like a restaurant coming out with new foods to you, and you've seen that you can attend it on a consistent basis? Or will more exploration through Seattle be needed before the idea comes up? When that criteria is concerned, will only foods from big chains be explored? And that question is from Graphite Guy. Okay, great question. So here's the bottom line. When I lived in Connecticut, I had very limited food selection. A lot of the things that were near me were local businesses, and let's face it, do you want to see me do a DSP Tries It on a local business where you have zero chance of ever tasting that food if you don't live there? Probably not. So I tried to do things, for example, new food items from the local fast food chains, which were McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, and more recently, Popeyes, and of course, Pizza Hut and Domino's were the delivery services that I used for pizza. Here in the Washington State area, I have so much in such a small area. Let me just give you an example. I shit you not, 1 block away from where I live, there's Wendy's, there's McDonald's, there's Pizza Hut, there's Taco Bell, there's Dairy Queen, there's Arby's, and I think there may be, oh, and KFC. All that, so is it 7 things, 8 things I just mentioned, within a block of my home. I could drive less than 5 minutes and get food from any of those. So any of those places, when you hear there's a new sandwich, there's a new thing, I will probably be trying it out for DSP Tries It, okay? Now, there are other places local to the West Coast, for example, Jack in the Box, Carl's Jr. Those 2 places, I say Jack in the Box is probably about 10 to 15 minutes away. It's not that far. It's about as far as I used to drive to get food when I was in Connecticut. Carl's Jr., there's only one in this area. It's very far. It's about half an hour away. We had it once, and we hated it. The food came out. The food was absolutely terrible. They forgot to even cook our food to begin with. We're sitting here for 20 minutes. No food came out. We're like, where's our food? Oh, we didn't cook it. Then the food that they made pretty much was terrible. I had a burger. The burger was good, but the fries, I ordered like chili cheese fries. No, it wasn't chili cheese. It was ranch and bacon fries. Almost had no toppings on it. The fries were soggy and disgusting. Leanna ordered a chicken sandwich. It was called the Big Chicken. The chicken patty was the smallest thing we'd ever seen, and it was all bread, and there was almost no meat inside of it. It was like eating a dry piece of fucking bread instead of a chicken sandwich. She got, I think, onion rings. The onion rings, everything we got there was bad except for my burger. So, am I going to drive 30 minutes out of the way for a place that has horrible staff, which, by the way, there was no manager on duty, so there was no one I could even complain to? So, do I want to go back there? I don't know. That was a really bad experience. So, chances are, Carl's Jr., unless they have a big thing that's announced, I probably won't be checking out for DSP Tries It, okay? Now, there are other places. For example, we have gone to a few different Asian restaurants. There's 1 or 2 that we've vlogged from already. There's also a Mexican restaurant that's really good called Azteca, which we didn't have anything like that on the East Coast. Authentic Mexican cuisine. It's absolutely delicious. And there's some other places as well that are local that are more sit-down restaurant places. Will I be going to those? More infrequently, definitely, okay, than the fast food places, okay? But I will probably be frequenting those as well. Now, there's other things like Jimmy John's is out here, which we had once. That was really good, but we didn't vlog it. That's the thing. We've been doing things, but we're not vlogging them every single time. We are going to be doing that from time to time. So maybe 1 or 2 times a week you'll see a cool vlog where it's a DSP Tries It or something like that, okay? But here's the thing. And I said we were going to do this when we moved out here, and now we're actually starting to do it. We're trying to not eat out every day. Okay? We're trying to make it so that we balance it. Maybe 1 or 2 days we stay home, then maybe we go out, then 1 or 2 days we stay home. Because let's face it, staying home to eat is, number 1, probably going to end up being less expensive. Number 2, we'll end up eventually being healthier, depending on what we're eating. And it's time saving for me, because let's say I'm streaming, I finish my stream, well, Leanna cooked a meal, now we eat together, and now I can get back to work, versus, oh, I have to go out and drive and get the food, then drive back, and then, you know, then eat it. It's more time consuming to do that. So we do want to get a staple list of meals, recipes that we're good at making, and that we can do quickly, and that are healthier, and that we can do on a consistent basis. Right now, I kid you not, Leanna is trying a new recipe. It's some kind of baked zucchini with crab meat and stuff, and she's making it right now. We have no idea if we're going to like it. So we're going to test that for dinner today and see if we like it, and if we do, we'll probably continue to do it, and we'll put it on our menu. Now, I still have not had a chance to do this, but in the coming weeks, I am going to set up a weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, when I'm going to make a pot of my famous Italian recipe, Burnell family sauce. That it's really not Burnell, it's actually my mom's maiden name, but I'll reveal all that when we actually make the sauce. And it's an authentic Italian sauce, but that takes all day. But I am going to do that, and we're going to use that to do things to make pasta, grinders, and different dishes like that. So there will be things coming that are going to replace us going out to eat every day, but that's going to take a while for us to get into the routines to do that. In fact, today was the first day Leanna unpacked all the pots and pans and stuff so that we have everything ready to start cooking. So that's coming in the near future. All right, let's see here. One more question, then we'll go take a break here, okay? All right, this next question, oops, what did I do? I pressed the wrong button. Here we go. Then this next question, here we go. Hey, Phil, a question for you, as this is something I'm curious about. I know that you've been on YouTube for a long time playing video games. Hold on. But was wondering, what has been the hardest games you've ever played, either from you before or since you started playing on YouTube? And that question's from Blue Blur 1997. Great question, because I'm going to be honest with you, Blue Blur. First of all, the most unforgiving, difficult games that I probably ever played were some of the original NES games, because some of those games were so difficult, they actually intended that you would find cheat codes, or you would sit there for hours and hours on end to finally dedicate and perfect the gameplay so that you could beat the game. One of the ones that comes to mind, remember Ninja Gaiden? Holy fuck, dude. Ninja Gaiden 1 that I played on the NES a couple years back, I can't beat that game. That's bullshit. If you lose to the last boss, you have to replay the entire fucking stage from the beginning again, which takes like 15 minutes to get back to the boss if you do a perfectionist run. And the problem is you're trying to learn the boss's pattern. Oh, you died again? Fuck you. Replay another 15 minutes to a half hour, and you're like, this is bullshit. This game is not fair in that regard. But honestly, that's not the hardest game I've ever played. The hardest games I've ever played were arcade games, because arcade machine stand-up games were literally designed to hook you with addictive gameplay, but have portions of the game that you cannot pass unless you plunk a ton of money into the machine. So, for example, you'd be playing a beat-em-up. Oh, it's great, side-scrolling beat-em-up. All of a sudden, the final boss, right? You've been playing for an hour, you get to the final boss. Guess what? He kills you with one fucking hit, and now it takes like 10, 15 minutes of fighting this guy to kill him. You gotta put in like $10 into this machine to beat it. It's just unforgivingly hard. And, of course, you might say, well, yeah, but there's ways in those games to be abusive and to beat them. Absolutely, but keep in mind, you didn't own those games. Those games stayed at the arcade, so it's not like you could bring it home and practice those portions. You had to keep putting money into the game to learn how to beat them. There were some of those games that you would put so much effing money into and never beat. And what a lot of people don't realize is games like Ninja Gaiden, games like Ghouls and Ghosts, even, yeah, Mario Brothers originally were arcade games. A lot of people don't realize that. Talk about difficult. You try to beat Super Mario Brothers 1, never played a Mario game before, it's in an arcade. How much money is it going to cost you to beat the game? So, that's what you got to put into perspective. Those were the hardest games because you didn't own them. You couldn't sit there and practice them nonstop. You really had to dedicate a lot of time and effort to put into it and spend a ton of effing money. Okay, everybody. It's time for a break. If you're watching this on Twitch TV, stick around. We'll be back after a quick commercial break. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to jump ahead to the next part, which will be part 3 of episode 44 of Ask the King. Thanks a lot, everyone. We'll be right back with lots more questions and answers.